Welcome to Glove Talk, your weekly news of boxing. If you enjoy this kind of content, make sure to hit the subscribe button. If you enjoy the video, make sure to hit the like button. With that said, let's talk about the fight. Okay, so we have Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. going on this weekend. I'm kind of excited about this fight. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below and who you have winning. So let's look at the stats for these guys real quick. Mike Tyson is 54 years old. Roy Jones Jr. is 51. Roy has a slight height advantage of 1 inch and has a 3-inch reach advantage over Mike. Do I think that'll play a factor? Not really. Mike's always been the shorter guy and always dealt with guys that have more reach than him. Now let's talk about each guy, their pros, their cons, and their game plan probably going into this fight, and then I'll give you my final prediction. For Roy, I think a big pro is that he's been active and competitive up until 2018. Now, granted, a lot of the fights he's had recently have been glorified exhibitions, but still, he's still in the ring. He's staying sharp physically and mentally. He's training Chris Eubank Jr. currently also. So I feel like he's going to be fairly comfortable in the ring compared to Mike, who hasn't been in the ring for like what, 20 years or so. So I think that's a big positive for Roy. The con for Roy going into this fight is that his best attributes when he was in his prime were his athleticism, his speed, and his agility. And those are the first things to go when you get older as a fighter. Now, he's not going against someone that's younger than him. He's going against someone that's actually older than him. So he might have enough of those still left to utilize it to be effective and, win the fight. But how much of that is left, I don't know, because if he doesn't have enough, I think Mike Tyson's going to be all over him. So now let's talk about game plan for Roy in this fight. If I'm Roy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clinch, and then I'm going to dictate when we have engagements. You think about it, this is something Roy's always done. Not the clinching so much, but it basically dictating engagement. That's what he's the best at. That's where his ring IQ is very high at. He knows what angles to take and what benefits him and what is a disadvantage for his opponent. So it was always one of those things where you can't hit me, I can hit you. I have the speed, I have the athleticism. I dictate when we have exchanges. And for when he gets older, he realizes he doesn't have that same athleticism. So what he does is he ties you up. He, wraps you up, gets in a clinch, and then he decides when he wants to have engagements. I think that's what I would do in this fight as well if I was him. I don't see why you would want to stay at range and feel a punch from Mike Tyson at full extension. You don't want that. You don't want to be a punching bag for him. You want him to really work and hopefully maybe even gas out. If you're going to take punches from Mike, you want them to be in close and for them to be stunted because you're clinching, not something where you're up against the ropes or in a corner. So I think for Roy, that's what I would do. I think if he's going to win, it's going to be by points. If you want to take a long shot bet, I would actually pick Roy Jones Jr. to win by KO. If you want to make a bunch of money, I don't think that's going to happen, especially because Roy doesn't have true heavyweight knockout power. Plus, Mike Tyson's felt some of the power from some of the heaviest handed heavyweights there's ever been. So I don't think he'll knock out Mike, but I think he could outpoint Mike. So let's talk about Mike now, his pros, his cons, and his game plan going into this. The pros for Mike are that he's always been a heavyweight. He's always been a heavyweight fighter. I mean, he's been a heavyweight since he's been 12 years old. Teddy Atlas talks about him having to spar 17-year-olds because he couldn't find anyone to fight with him. So that's a big pro for him. He's going to be very comfortable. He looks like he's in phenomenal shape. Another big pro for Mike is that mentally, he's maybe in the best place he's ever been in his entire life. I mean, he can really focus. He has a clear head. I'm so happy for him, actually, that he's in such a great place because, based on his past and what he's gone through, you could see him being totally distracted in a totally different place in his life, but he's in a really good place. So I'm expecting him to be very focused for this fight. The con for, Mike going into this fight is that he has asthma. He's talked about this. He doesn't talk about it a lot, but he has mentioned it, and he could gas out in this fight. Now, I know what you're saying. He looks phenomenal. What do you mean he could gas out? Just because you look physique-wise very good doesn't mean you're still going to have great stamina. We've seen this in boxing time and time again. If he gets tired and he gets gassed, it could really affect his ability to be the aggressor in this fight, which is, I think, is what he's going to try to do. He's going to be on the front foot for this fight. And if he, gasses, I think that's going to really go into the favor of Roy Jones Jr. Game plan wise, I mentioned that they're 2-minute rounds and how that benefits Roy Jones Jr. That also benefits Mike Tyson, because now he doesn't have to save as much gas in his tank. He can really go full bore if he feels like he is able to go the entire fight nonstop and be aggressive as he wants to be. There's no reason that he shouldn't. With 2-minute rounds, those are quick rounds. So if he's in great physical shape, he should absolutely go from the get-go, nonstop, really fast. Try to get Roy to make a mistake. And the thing about Roy Jones Jr. is that the last time he was in a competitive fight was 2015. He got brutally knocked out. And so I could absolutely see Mike Tyson winning by knockout. I don't really see him winning by points as much. Okay, so final prediction now. If I had to predict this fight, I would probably favor Mike Tyson to win by stoppage. And I'll tell you why. With these guys being at this age, the California Athletic Commission is going to be watching this thing like a hawk. They have special rules for these guys, 2-minute rounds, heavier gloves. If someone gets cut, they're going to stop the fight. So I'm expecting this ref to step in at any sign that someone's getting beaten and losing. If Mike gets Roy into the corner against the ropes and Roy can't really get out of it and fight back for even 7 seconds or so, I could see the ref just jumping in. And don't get me wrong, fans will be upset about it, but I'm not going to be surprised if it happens, because they have to be very careful with these guys at this age to allow them to compete. I also know that Mike wants to have multiple fights. I am sure Roy might want to have multiple fights. So they're really going to be careful about this and make sure that no one gets injured or has any kind of permanent damage because of this fight. So I am expecting Mike Tyson to be able to go full steam ahead from the sound of the bell, for Roy to try to clinch him. I think eventually Mike is going to find an opening and be able to hit Roy to the body and kind of slow him down, and then go to work on him in the corner or against the ropes. I just don't think Roy has the same athleticism enough to keep Mike at bay. And I don't think he can move well enough, especially with his bad knees he's had, to be able to keep away from Mike. And I think Mike will eventually find a way to land some big punches, hurt Roy, and they'll stop the fight. That's my opinion on it. Let me know yours down in the comments below. And with that said, we'll talk to you later. Thanks.